Hi you guys, it's Tamika Yvonne, and as promised, I have another video excerpt for you all from my book that's coming out. I still don't have a release date. It's called Trauma to Triumph. I will keep you all posted. I'm working very hard on getting it done. What's left now is just the editing, so please bear with me. But in the meantime, I hope you like the story. This particular day, the story that I'm gonna tell is about a day when my stepfather was shot in the head. So my parents sold drugs for a living. My mother worked as well, but it was primarily a front. They sold drugs. That's how we lived. During this particular time, they had actually suffered some losses, a lot of them, because my mother got caught trying to smuggle the liquid that they used to make the drug from Texas to California, and she ended up having to do a lot of time, and so that kind of set them back. Though my stepfather, he worked as well. He worked two jobs. So they were trying to, I guess, get back, trying to get their money back up. So this particular day, first off, they were staying in a motel, which was down the street from my grandparents' house. If you're from Oakland, California, then you'll know the street is 75th and MacArthur. That old motel that used to be there, I think it's been demolished since then. But my grandparents lived right up the hill on 75th and Outlook, which is where we were staying for the time being, because my parents were, trying to get their money back. But I was back and forth there all day, because these are my parents, and I had younger brothers and sisters by this point, and I wanted to play with them throughout the day and all of that. And it was summer. This particular day, I came down and my stepfather said, okay, since you're here, you sit down. He put me in a room because this motel had bedrooms, and he said, count this money. I counted out $15,000. So after that, while I was counting this money, my mother actually left. I remember a white man came. He was in a white Benz, and my mother left with this man. And after that, my stepfather sent me back up the hill. Go back up the hill to your grandmother's house. And he told me to stay, but I didn't listen. I was hard-headed. So I got a call about, I want to say maybe an hour in. We got a call from my mom from the jail. So her and this white man apparently had gotten busted. The man had coke. I don't know how much, but he had coke in the back of his car. Of course, that's what their deal was. That was the dealings. So the guy, or actually my mother said, listen, run down the hill, go tell your stepfather that I'm in jail, and tell him to start putting things together to bail me out. And let him know that I'm going to try to call, because, in motels you have to put a deposit on the phone, and I don't guess they were bothering with that if they didn't need it. So she said, let him know that I'm going to try to call. So I went, did what I was supposed to do. I went down, I said, hey, Pete. I called him by his name, but he was very much my father. I said, Mom called, and she said she's in jail. And she said that she was going to try to call at whatever specific time it was. I don't remember. So he said, okay, go back up the hill. He sent me back up the hill. So I went back up the hill for maybe, another hour, and I went back down. When I went down this time, my younger brothers and sisters were gone. As a matter of fact, I want to say one of my cousins was there as well, Robert. I think you were there that day, Robert. I can't remember if I'm accurate, but I believe you were there that day at the earlier part of the day. So I stayed down there for a little while. He sent me back up the hill. After about another hour and 15 minutes, I decided to come right back down. I came back down. This time, my cousin was gone, and there was a woman there. And I asked my stepfather, I'm like, where are the kids? And he said, oh, they're with Cheryl, the babysitter, which I knew that wasn't. I knew my mom did not want that. My mother was not real big on people keeping her kids, and I knew that he was doing something wrong. I'll say that. He was doing something he had no business, because the woman was a cousin who I had seen before while my mother was in prison. So I kind of knew, something was going on that shouldn't have been. But it wasn't my business. As a child, I mind my business. He said go back up the hill, so I did. After a couple of hours, because we could hear everything. We heard gunshots. Thought nothing of it. But it was, it's always scary, but it wasn't so scary. I lived in Oakland, California. You could hear gunshots all the time. I had to duck bullets as a child a lot of times, even in our own home, even in a nice place. So it just wasn't that odd. And after about 30 minutes, we get a phone call. And the phone call was from a friend of mine's, or not a friend of mine's, a friend of my mother's. She had grown up with them there. We called her, or everybody called her twin. She was the sister of another twin, Tony and Terry. I'm sure, I know, if y'all from Oakland, y'all know Tony and Terry, y'all know this motel. Anyway, she said, listen, y'all, your daddy got shot. And of course, my sister and I, we are bawling. My grandparents were at an Eastern Star meeting, which means they would be getting in late. And there were no cell phones then. We could call the hall, but 9 times out of 10, nobody would answer. And so we're panicked, but we can hear him in the background, and he's yelling our names, all of his kids. I can name all my kids, and da-da-da-da. So he was naming off all of our names. So we thought, okay, it's not that bad. I had watched my stepfather saw his toe off before with a chainsaw. And I just thought from that, just the way he handled that, I just thought he's fine. He was invincible. He was Superman to me. So we waited, and it was you could hear the ambulance, you could hear all the commotion down there, but of course, at this point, we're not going down. I wasn't going down there. I was too afraid of what I would see. And we waited for our grandparents to come. Hours had gone by. My mom, by this point, had called back and was like, what happened? Why didn't he answer the phone? And we had to tell her over the phone that he had been shot. And she was, distraught and panicked and all of this. So, my grandparents pull into the garage, and we run down to the garage, and we're trying to, we're waving and please hurry, and roll down the window or get out of the car. And she thought we were joking, so she's like waving with us. And telling the story is like, whoo. So she gets out of the car. We said, Grandma P got shot. And we didn't know details or anything until, and maybe my grandmother found out, but that night she just kind of let us rest, And we found out that he was shot close range, I believe with the .38. The guy, the cousin of the guy that my mother went to jail with came over demanding that money. And my stepfather said, I'm not giving you that money. If he didn't tell me to give it to you, I ain't giving you that money, because I don't work like that. And he said, I'm waiting on them to call. When I get the call from my wife and him, I got you. If he tell me to give you this money, I got you. But until I hear that, I'm not doing that. So apparently, the man came back and forth several times that day trying to get that money. And the last time he came, he threatened my stepfather. He told him, when I come back, I'ma shoot you if you don't give me that money. And it's strange because my stepfather never opened a door. He never even went to the window without a gun. And I guess he did this day. and he opened the door, and the gentleman came in, and he shot my stepfather in the head twice, close range. My stepfather's childhood best friend was there, and he had to run out the back of the motel and hop out the window. He wasn't a drug dealer. He was just a family man, a hardworking man, but they had been friends for so many years. He was just there hanging with his buddy, drinking whiskey, doing what they did. And my stepfather, the gun took this portion of his head was missing. You had to put a metal plate in it. He could not talk. After that night, he could talk initially. After he went into the hospital, they told us he would not live. They said if he did live, he would be a vegetable. He wouldn't walk. He wouldn't talk. After about 3 or 4 days, he was calling. We had our own phone at our grandmother's house. He was calling that phone at odd times because, of course, he didn't have a real concept of time. And he was mumbling things like, love you, love you. He would tell us how much he loved us. And, and he would tell me, keep walking, moving. In other words, keep moving. And just to give a little bit of insight into, but he lived through that. He didn't fully recover. That day was pretty much the day that we lost our father, because he couldn't walk normally. He couldn't talk. He wasn't the man that took care of us. He taught me to play chess. He taught me to always be myself. That's what he taught me. He taught me, not to worry about the acceptance of others. He taught me to be proud of my uniqueness. That's what he taught me. Among other things, he taught me a lot of things, but that was the most valuable thing he taught me, because I was odd already. I was a young child, and I was already just very, I was different. I was different from everybody else. I was big in personality, and not everybody liked me. Even some adults just didn't, But he always fought for me, and he always taught me to always let that part of me shine. So this was a big deal for me. He, like I said, he raised us. He turned our entire life around in a time when my mom had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and he came in and he was the man for her, and he was a father to us. And so it was devastating. It was a very devastating time, but the good thing is he still did live, and he still did get to see us get older and be successful. He didn't pass away until 2003 or 2002 or 2003. I mixed up him and my actual father, because I honestly found out about the both of them at the same time, that they had both passed away, which is another story for another day. But I thank you guys so much for listening. I know this one's a little bit rough, but again, the point of these stories is to highlight perseverance. That's what we do. We push through. And yes, I have been through a lot in life. Some from my own doing, some as a child, I've been through, and not just negative things. I've had some great things in my life, which I'll share some of those stories as well. Next week, I'll share a story with you all, a very positive one. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the story. Go out, you guys, and do love.